In today's video, we're going to study about consumer behavior. We'll look at the meaning and importance of consumer behavior, a comparison between organizational buying behavior and consumer buying behavior, the different buying roles that are involved in buying, the five-stage consumer buying decision process, the concept of moment of truth in buying, and the moderating effects of consumer behavior or the types of buying behavior for a consumer. Let's begin by looking at the definition of consumer behavior. What exactly is consumer behavior? It is the study of how individuals, customers, groups, or organizations select, buy, use, and dispose of ideas, goods, and services to satisfy their needs and wants. It refers to the actions of the consumers in the marketplace and the underlying motives for those actions. When it comes to understanding a consumer behavior for a marketer, it is of paramount importance for him to understand why does a consumer purchase a particular product or utilize a particular service and what goes into the consumer's entire decision making process in purchasing a particular product. We not just look at him selecting a product or buying a product or using it. If you look at that particular word out there, disposing, why is disposal so important? The example that comes to my mind is Maruti. When we look at trying to purchase a car, Maruti is something that people purchase not just for its various features, whether it is value for money or a mileage car, but also because it has a resale value. You can dispose of the car and still be able to get a good amount of purchase value for your sale or for your resale rather. Consumers, when they buy, it is not a very direct process. It's a very complex process when consumers try to purchase a particular product or they try to make a decision behind purchasing a product. When we talk about individual, group, or organizational behaving, individual buying is something for the consumer to consume by themselves or for their family use. Organizational buying is something which is wherein it's not just an individual who's involved, but there are more than one individuals involved in a organizational buying. And every buying actually stems out from an underlying motive, which we'll look at further when we try and understand the entire consumer model and the buying process. We look at further as to understand how consumers go about making their decision for purchasing a particular product or a service. But why do we need to understand or study consumer behavior? Why is it so important? Before we dive into the points that are given in here, I would like to highlight to you a particular example. Let's look at our mobile phones. Way long back, we only had the back camera for our mobile phones. We did not have something called as the front camera. But over a period of time, marketers started realizing that even though there is a back camera, what people would do is they would reverse the back camera and try to take their own photo, which means that gave rise to the entire concept of the selfie as we know it today. Consumers using they need not use their back camera as a front camera, but they have a front camera fitted in there. This was possible only by understanding the consumer behavior. How do consumers utilize a product? Not just about how do consumers go about purchasing a product, but their entire utilization of a product and what is their inherent need when they are trying to purchase a product. What goes behind their minds into purchasing a particular product. But the various other importances of consumer behavior, it helps marketers build better strategies when they are developing their entire marketing plan and helps in understanding the consumer preferences and tastes And if we're able to understand that very well, we can come up with better products which will definitely cater to the marketplace and will be able to make a sale. To understand the consumption pattern of consumers, which is of paramount importance, what makes him purchase a particular product throughout his entire consumer journey, to avoid failures in decision making, to make better pricing policies. How well should I price my product? At which price point should I be placing my product? Determining the sales promotional activities, as we had seen in an earlier video when we learned about segmentation, targeting, and positioning. We also looked at how are the promotional activities that go into this. Determining the segmentation and targeting strategies, understanding the production policies, how much should I produce? It is also an input back towards the production or the product manager or the production department for them to understand how much should I produce. Based on only understanding the market, only understanding the consumers in the market, would we be able to say how much can we actually produce a particular product or not? Meet the competition in the product, or sorry, in the market. If we understand the consumers well, we are basically producing a better product than our competitors, and we'll be in a position to cater to the taste and preferences of the consumers, and we'll be able to do one of better than the competitor. Handle the advancement in technologies or any other market related changes, which is what we are seeing these days. With the technological advancements, we are seeing a lot of new products come into the market. uh, I'm recording an entire class utilizing advancement in technology, softwares which are non-existent in the past, which were not even really present. We have online meets. Uh, there was WebEx, there was Cisco WebEx always in place. There was Microsoft team meetings always in place, but people had not heard of things like Zoom or Meet or Jitsi or the various other platforms which have really risen up in the market today, because that kind of has been an advancement in technology or market changes, and each product caters to a different segment. Not everybody would use Zoom or Google Meet. Now, these are not very popular. Meet is not very popular among the corporates. They would rather go for something like WebEx, Cisco, more secure. They would go for Microsoft Teams. Uh, Again, different segments, different tastes, and people would go into different recording softwares again based on their own preferences and tastes. This is for your reference, what basically defines a customer and a consumer, which is very well known. A customer could be a person who's purchasing a product for his consumption or for resale, or need not be for his consumption. But a consumer is someone who purchases a product for his final consumption. When it comes to a customer, he is the one who actually pays for the product. But when it comes to a consumer, he may not be paying for the product. It may be paid by somebody else, but he's just the final end consumer of the product. When we talk about customers, it's about an individual or an organization. But we talk about a consumer, it will be generally an individual, family, or a group of people. It could be anybody. Consumer versus industrial buying. Now, the manner in which consumer buying happens is very different in which an organizational buying happens. The entire buying for consumers, whether it is goods or services, is for personal consumption. But when we talk about industrial buying, we're not talking about an individual who's purchasing it. There are groups who basically take up a decision, and it is a very complex buying process. It's not as direct as a single consumer or an individual would go and purchase a product. We would buy something for a productive purpose for, say, let's say a company which is a manufacturing company, which would buy raw materials, peripherals, any other materials that are required for the manufacturing process or the production process for the purpose of building a end product. The final outcome is sold to another customer. See, organizational buying is a process by which formal organizations establish the need for purchase products and services and identify, evaluate, and choose among alternative brands and suppliers. So they also will go through different brands and suppliers or vendors based on what kind of raw materials or peripherals which they would be purchasing. Let's understand these two different models. in the coming slides. A model for consumer buying behavior. This is pretty simple. Something that is an outcome of your organizational behavior, OB, a concept that you have already learned very well in OB as to what influences a consumer based on, or an individual rather, what influences an individual based on his internal influences or external. As you see there in the diagram, the external influences could be your culture, could be subculture, could be your demographics, your age, income, marital status, sex, your social status in the society, could be the reference groups, your friends, and any other part of any other formal or informal group that you're part of, could be your family, who would be who would be an influence in your buying decision, uh, or any other marketing activities, any kind of ads that you see, any kinds of ads, should be external or online or offline ads that you would see on any different ad media platforms. These could be some of the external influences which would go about in influencing your decision to buy a particular product or a service, or consume a particular service. Internal influences are well known. This is an outcome of your entire organizational behavior study, which could be your perception, your learning, memory, motives, personality, your emotional emotions, and your personal attitudes. Could be any of this which would lead to influencing your personal buying behavior. Both these go into defining the self concept and your lifestyle, the concept of self and your lifestyle of an individual. And based on that, the needs and desires are built for a particular product. And then he would go through the entire decision making process, or a five-stage process, which we would study in the next in the coming slides in this particular video. We'll look at that in depth, in detail. But he goes through this five-stage process before he tries to purchase a particular make a final decision on purchasing a product. Which, if you see, it's kind of a loop. Based on your experiences, you can go back and forth between your external or internal influences and building your lifestyle concept, which is not going to be fixed over a period of time, which will which will keep evolving over a period of time. Our purchase decisions also evolve over a period of time, and again, they are a resultant of the external or internal influence, and also resultant of what we go through as a buying process in the five-stage model, which we will see in the coming slides. The idea for you to understand in here is that consumers, when they go through a buying behavior, the model would somewhat look like this, because it's not just one parameter which is influencing your buying behavior, but there are more than one parameter which influences your buying behavior. As we look further, let's understand the organizational buying behavior right now uh, versus the consumer buying behavior. When we talk about an organization, we are talking about a group of buyers. There's something called the firmographics which is involved, which is not the individual behaviors which are involved. It's more complex buying behavior, because the stakeholders in the buying center are driven by professional responsibilities. They are people with you could say they are more technical people. They are not people who can easily be influenced or easily be fooled around with. They take much more time in trying to decide, and they make high value purchases. Different decisions occur simultaneously within the buying center. When we use the concept of buying center in organization, we say buying center or the purchasing department. The other word which can be used is the purchasing department, because there are more than one people involved there. It's an entire department. And it can go through multiple stages of evaluation, review rather. There could be a manager, there could be another person, and ultimately a final decision is made on buying, and they will look at multiple parameters. They look at multiple vendors, suppliers. Let's say a government buying also goes through a lot of tenders. So it's not a very simple process where I like something, I search for something, and I go and make a buy. It involves a lot of people. You could say it's also a kind of group buying. When we look at a model of organizational buying behavior, we're talking about external influences, let's say firmographics. When I say firmographics, we're talking about the size of the firm, the volume of purchase, the number of people who are there. A larger firm goes through a larger period of time in buying, and it's more complex, and the kind of products that are evaluated are also very high price products. The culture of that particular firm, the government regulatories which a firm has to adhere to. The reference groups in here may not be your friends and family. It's more like your competitors. They are your reference groups. Uh, Whenever you're trying to evaluate any product, you'll also evaluate to see whether your competitors are basically using that product, because you would not want to utilize the same product which your competitor is using. And if you are, then you would probably want a better package from that vendor as compared to your competitor. And yes, marketing activities are both ways. Why these marketing activities are B2B marketing activities. When we talk about marketing activities earlier in a consumer buying behavior model, we're talking about the B2C kind of a marketing activities where marketers are trying to target end consumers, the general public. But when we talk about marketing activities for marketers for a business scenario, we're talking about B2B, business to business, selling raw materials and trying to make them buy, fully built products for a business is very different, and you cannot use the same set of tactics which can be used for an individual consumer, and so that also comes as part of the external influences. Some of the best companies which come up with intermediary products for larger firms are able to really market them well, are able to highlight it quite well. Internal, well, it depends on your organizational values and everything else. What we're looking right there, perception, learning, memory, motives, and emotions. Here we are talking about all of this. You would probably ask, who is this? Is it individual? No, it's actually the purchasing department or the buying center, or you could say the purchase manager, the or you can say the manager who's part of the purchasing department, the person who makes the final buy or the final go on on the purchasing of your product. Of course, there are multiple buyers, but at the end, we are looking at the perception, learning, memories, motives, and emotions of the purchase center. The organizational values, yes, that basically you might have a particular way in which you operate, so you may not want to deal with vendors that you have which are not part of your organizational values, whatever your values are. Both these go into defining the entire culture of an organization, which leads to, as an individual, similarly here as an organization, it actually defines needs and desires of the organization. And again, for the organization, it also has to go through a different stage buying process, which is a little more complex as compared to a five-stage buying process for the consumer. This is not of importance for you as of now. For you as of now, it's to understand that a model of organizational buying behavior involves a lot of external, internal influences, which are very different than consumers, and they also go through multi-stage process for buying. The exact number of steps that they go through and what those steps are not part of your study at this point in time. So I'll move further in trying to discuss about the buying rules. When we actually try to purchase a product, or when anybody tries to purchase a product, there are these different people play these different roles when it comes to making a decision about purchasing a product. It could be an initiator role or an influencer role, a decider role, a buyer role, or a user role. Some of these are self-explanatory, but let's take the an organizational example, and let's take a individual example and try to understand these roles. Let's say, for example, as given in here, assume that a wife initiates a purchase by requesting a new treadmill for a birthday. Now, in here, she is the initiator. The husband may then seek information from many sources, including his best friend who has a treadmill. Now, his best friend becomes an influencer here. And he's a key influencer in what models to consider. After presenting the alternative choices to his wife, he then purchases a preferred model. So, who's the buyer here? The husband is the buyer, which ends up being used by the entire family. So, who are the users? Not just his wife, but also the entire family would make use of the treadmill which he has bought. Different people are playing different roles, but all are crucial in the decision process and ultimate consumer satisfaction. So in here, the buyer as well as the decider was the husband, the initiator was the wife, the influencer was his friend, and the user was not just the wife but also the entire family. If we have to consider this from a organizational perspective, let's say there is office equipment, their office supplies are over. The employees start are requesting for office stationery supplies. So the administrative department would initiate, right? Would initiate the entire process of buying. They would request. They'd realize that there is. They would see that the stock is actually getting over of office supplies, and they would need to request for new office supplies. So the administrative department would be the initiator for initiating the request for, or basically evaluating different vendors for office equipments to be bought. Who would be the influencer here? The person who would be looking at the different alternatives out there or the different vendors out there who are supplying office equipment. So the technical person here who's sitting there looking at the different specifications or defines the specifications and looks at the alternatives is the influencer. Who is the final buyer? The final buyer is the one who has formal authority, who has been given formal authority to buy. Simple as that. And basically, his job is to select the supplier, arrange the purchase terms, whatever, give the invoice and make a purchase and release the entire bill. He has to select, he has to negotiate, he has to come down to a agreement, and generally it could be anyone. In here we are talking about a high level manager. It could be anything. The designation doesn't matter, but he is at some formal authoritative role. The decider in the organization, the person who's buying could be different from the person who's deciding, but it wasn't the case when you talk about an individual like the husband. He was the buyer, he was the decider, right? But people who decide on product requirements or on suppliers and those who have authority to select suppliers for major purchase, the final decision will be taken by the top management. Now, buyer could have had formal authority to buy, but he would still have to have someone above him to say, okay, go ahead and make the purchase. That would be the top management. Finally, who would be the users? The users are generally the one who come initiate. It's always the case. Who initiates is the one who ultimately land up using it. In this case, it's going to be the purchase department, and not just the purchase department. They are buying it for the organization. So definitely all the employees of the organization are going to be making use of the office supply equipments, right? And that would be the users who would be also the initiators, but also different from the initiators. Having understood the entire buying roles, the different five different buying roles, we'll understand the five-stage buying process or consumer decision making process or the buying stage process, or it's also called the five-stage model for consumer decision making. Different terms are used or the buying process, but it's always uh, ideally it is five, but sometimes the fifth stage that you see there is split into use and evaluation. So sometimes it's also the sixth stage, but mostly it's called the five-stage process. Stage 1, problem recognition. Stage 2, information search. Stage 3, alternative evaluation. Stage 4, purchase decision. And stage 5, post-purchase decision evaluation. And use and evaluation, if I have to really break it down into two different stages. So what do each of these stages entail? Let's look at the first stage, problem recognition. Problem or need recognition. When we talk about a problem or an inherent need that arises out of, basically that gives rise to defining what should I be purchasing. It could be as simple as something is out of stock at my place, some daily item which I purchase, milk, bread, um, need not also be daily. Could be also things like toothpaste. It's out of stock, so I need to restock it. Soaps, not so, not really something that I would go into thinking too much about purchasing, but it's something I really need, so I'm going to purchase it. It's out of stock, that's why I'm going to be. That's your problem right now. That's your need right now. And in here, sometimes this not just small value, sometimes which are a very essential need, you do not even go through the entire five-stage model. You need to understand that there is a five-stage model, but you need not go through the entire five stage. For certain low value items, for certain items which are very much essential and a daily need, you can directly go to the buying stage automatically. You can go right from your problem recognition to the buying stage. You need not even have to go through the other stages of information search, alternative evaluation. You directly have a problem, you know, you have a need, you directly go and make a purchase because you already are aware of what you want, right? But when you aren't aware of what you want, then you go through the entire five-stage process. The second could be in the problem recognition stage, you are dissatisfied with the product that you had purchased earlier. So now you want to change your product. And again, you would go through that would be your trigger rather. That would be your problem recognition at this point in time before we go to the next stage. There could be a new need or a want. Now, this new need or a want could be a resultant of anything. Could be probably your friend had actually suggested something that you've seen your friend purchase something. He's probably bought. You were not aware that there is a product in the market, and he's suddenly you were probably using earphones, which are wired earphones, and suddenly you see your friend making use of Bluetooth earphones, or and you say, wow, that's something new, I haven't seen that, and it's a new need, and you like suddenly, oh, I want that, I want to get rid of all these jagged wires, and I just want to get rid of it, and I want to purchase something like that. It's suddenly a new need, it's suddenly a new want, which you probably never had in the first place. The trigger could be anything, but there is a problem, right? There is a need, you have a recognition for a need right now, or a purchase. Related product purchases, this is more common, wherein let's say I make a high value purchase. I'm making a purchase like a laptop, and suddenly over a period of time, I know that I need a mouse. I know I'll be needing a external hard disk. I'll be needing a flash drive. So all related products I'll start purchasing them. I'll probably my webcam goes for a toss, my laptop webcam. So I'll purchase an external webcam. So all of these things are related product purchases. Next could be market induced recognition. There is all these flashy ads that you see, which could propel you, could be online ads, could be offline ads, could should propel you to actually realize that you want something, or something you've always wanted, and you just have a flashy ad which is trying to showcase some kind of a deal which you basically creating a need within you. New products in the market. Suddenly there's something new, and if you are someone who likes to go with purchasing new products based on the category, I mean very specific to the category, and you would want to go and try that out. It could be a new product, could be a new flavor, or a new flavor in a chips that you're eating, and suddenly there's a new product or the new flavor out there. You would want to try that, so you would want to purchase that. So a need or a problem recognition could be a multiple ways in which need could be recognized. But once a need is recognized, once a problem is recognized, what do you do next? For those items for which is not something you need to think of too much, you'll go and immediately make a buy. But for those products for which you would have to really go through an entire information search, this search could come from your memory. You would be aware of the various alternatives out there. So you would basically already know what all the information that you need to be basically having about purchasing a particular product. It could be from your memory. External could be from personal sources, friends, relative, co-workers. You try to find out information from your friends. They would probably give you some suggestions. Your relatives would probably give you some suggestions. Your co-workers or your colleagues could give you some suggestions. It could be from market control sources like ads which could be online as well as offline ads. It could be in-store displays. You enter stores and you have a lot of displays, which is basically giving you a lot of information about different set of products. That could be your source of information. Public sources could be press releases, could be consumer blogs, could be any other kind of public source which is kind of giving you information. That could also be anything else which we talk about public source. Let's say when we talk in the online world, there are many more public sources. It's not just press release and consumer blogs. Personal experience. In your own personal experience, you have tested tried a product and you know well how the product is, then all the information that you need for a particular product is right there. So you already have a need, you already have a personal experience of the product, so you already know well whether I need to go about purchasing the same product or whether I need to be basically trying different alternatives in a similar category. Once you have the relevant information about the product, could be from any of those sources which we looked at or more, you will try to gather all that information, whether you looked at information from a wide variety of sources online. These days Google will give you a lot of information. You go around googling a day, googling more than a day, you do your information search. What do you do after that? It's time for you to evaluate all the alternatives that you have finally listed down upon. How do you evaluate these alternatives? The evaluation of alternatives would come down basically on some criteria, right? Which will vary for different set of products. Now, this different category of products will have different criteria upon which you will try to judge the product. Now, as a marketer, it is important to provide your product benefit. Obviously, trying to understand which criteria people are looking at, it is important for you to provide your product benefit in comparison, vis-a-vis, in comparison to your competitor based on this different criteria and show as to why you are better than the competitor. And you can see this very well. These days, when you go online to purchase, I'm seeing this feature which wasn't there many years back. Let's say I'm going online and I'm purchasing a product on anything. Could be a clothing product, could be an electronic product, could be a mobile. And I go onto the site and I start scrolling down and I see that product has been given on different criteria points versus different competitors in the same category. Let's say I'm trying to purchase Oppo mobile, and suddenly Oppo, I am purchasing a model of mobile of say 10,000 price range, and Oppo 10,000 mobile versus every other brand which is of a similar price point, all listed in a column beside each other, and different specs in the rows. Let's say on memory, on hard disk, on RAM, on each of these parameters, how do they rank? How does Oppo rank as compared to the others? And if Oppo is ranking really better on a high, generally competitors will try to give product benefits like we are really high. At the end, you will see one rating, let's say 4.5 out of 5, 3.5 out of 5. And if you are trying to showcase this product on your website, like Oppo's website, Oppo will definitely try to say we are better than all the other models on the same price range, or all the other camera front selfie camera mobiles, all the other let's say any other battery mobile, any other, we are the best, we provide the highest mAh, and we provide 2-day battery capacity compared to the others. So criterias, let's say we are talking about, I spoke about electronics, I spoke about mobile phones. We look at any other category, we look at hotels, we talk about location, cleanliness, atmosphere, the price points, could be some of the criterias. When you talk about mouthwash or toothpaste, we talk about the color, the effectiveness in terms of killing germs, could be the taste and the flavor of the toothpaste or the mouthwash, and the price. Could be also whether it is for sensitive teeth or for your sensitive gums, tires, based on safety, based on the tread life, based on the ride quality, based on the price point. If you see, when I'm talking about each of this categories and different criterias, you'll see that you can recollect a particular product type in each of this. And sometimes marketing advertisement USPs are messages. Remember, we spoke about segmentation, targeting, and proposition. That positioning or the propositional positioning is what is these criteria points. What's my USP? How do I stand out? Is what is generally showcased in ads. The taste, flavor is showcased in ads. The color, the effectiveness. We are a germ killing toothpaste and we are better than the competitors. This is what we do. That's my proposition. That's my unique selling proposition. That's where I stand out. And generally, each product will try to bring out its own criteria on which they stand out. And when we are having a need for a particular product, when we have done our entire information search and we've got all the set of brands that are available, and then we try to measure them on these criteria points. Sometimes we'll measure them on one, sometimes we'll try to measure them on multiple criteria points. If we're talking about very simple things like toothpaste, and I'm having a simple need that I'm having a gum pain, and I'm just looking at I'm looking at sensitive toothpaste. I may not find many in the market. I'll really probably find Sensodyne and probably some other ones, and I may probably select among three or four could be my alternative set, and I'll select one of them which I feel is better in terms of price or better in terms of the germ killing capacity. Or also in my information search, I will also look at something else. I'll also look at reviews, what people have to say about it, what people have spoken about it. But we'll talk about that review part of it in the last stage. Even though in this stage it is of very paramount importance, at each stage, having spoken about that, why are we even studying all this? Why are we studying why does a consumer go through this stage? Because in understanding how a consumer goes through these different stages in purchasing a product, it's of paramount importance to the marketer or in trying to design his strategies. At each stage he can target a consumer. Okay, at each stage he can try to target a consumer in basically trying to ensure that the consumer purchases the product from him. Okay. Now, when we look at an example right there, you see there's something called the total set, the awareness set, the consideration set. The total set, let's say a consumer wants to purchase laptops. Okay, and he has done his information search. He has rounded up on these different brands based on whatever criteria. He may have looked at RAM, hard disk, he may looked at multiple criteria. He has rounded up on this entire set of brands. From there, okay, he has listed down from the entire total set. Now, total set is not the set that he has found out. Total set is a set which is already out there. There are like 20 people who are selling laptops, but based on his search, on his criteria, he has rounded up on 5. He has only been able to find out 5 based on his criteria search. Out of those 5, he has further trimmed it down and considered to buy among 3. Finally, he has gone with 2 in terms of his choice set. This is what we do, right? This is what basically we do in an alternative selections. And finally, we go with 1. Of course, he's not buying 2, he's fine. Going to be going with 1, which is I don't know what he goes with. But the idea is that there is an entire market out there. He's aware of so much by his information search. He considers so much and it comes down to a choice set of 2 and then he decides upon 1. In the purchase decision stage, okay.